A wrong button press sent her to the Warfront. She returned with a medal. Lily Brooks sat at her small console, staring at rows of blinking lights and numbers that seemed to dance across the screen. She had worked on the orbital station for 6 months now, sorting data and running routine checks, and every day felt the same. The hum of the station's engines was comforting, a constant background she had grown used to. Outside, the endless darkness of space stretched in all directions, dotted with tiny stars that seemed to twinkle just for her. She loved the view, but she never thought she would leave the safety of the station. Today, however, was different. The station's comms system had been buzzing all morning with alerts, most of them minor errors in the supply logs. Lily had been so busy trying to fix them that she barely noticed the new notification flashing red on her console. It read, "Fleet Protocol Confirmation Required." She frowned. She had never seen that message before. Her training files said that such a protocol was only for high-ranking military officers. Her finger hovered over the keyboard. She knew she was supposed to report it, but her supervisor, Lieutenant Gordon, had left the control room in a hurry, promising to return shortly. The blinking light was growing more urgent. "Just a quick check," she muttered to herself, pressing a few buttons. The screen shifted, showing new panels she didn't understand. She frowned, trying to read the instructions. A warning flashed, "Confirm deployment." She stared at it. "Deployment?" She blinked. She had no idea what it meant. Lily's heart pounded. The station was normally quiet, and now alarms were going off all around her. She looked at the panel again, her finger trembling. She wanted to call someone, but the comm system was down for maintenance. There was no time. The red button on the screen seemed to be asking her directly, "Press me or ignore me." Without thinking, she pressed it. Instantly, a loud siren blared across the control room. Red lights flashed, bathing the entire space in an alarming glow. Lily froze, staring at the screen in horror. Numbers and codes she didn't understand started scrolling rapidly. The confirmation she thought was routine turned out to be anything but. She had just activated a live human fleet deployment. Fleets that were stationed in other parts of the galaxy, ready to fight, had now received orders, and because of the legal protocols, she was listed as the responsible operator. She had no choice. She was now officially part of the deployment. Minutes later, a small shuttle arrived at the station. Captain Alex Carter stepped inside, his expression serious. He was tall, with short brown hair and a permanent frown from too many stressful battles. Behind him, a few other officers followed, all staring at Lily like she was a puzzle they couldn't solve. "Lily Brooks," Carter asked, his voice firm. "You authorized the fleet deployment." Lily swallowed hard, her voice barely audible. I think I pressed the wrong button." "I didn't mean to," Carter raised an eyebrow. "Wrong button or not, the protocol was activated. You are legally bound to accompany us to the front. Grab your gear. We leave immediately." Lily's stomach dropped. Front. She had never even trained for war. She had spent her life arranging files, checking data, and making sure nothing broke on a quiet station. She had no idea what to do in a real battle, but the captain's eyes left no room for argument. She had no choice. Her hands shook as she followed the officers to the shuttle. The floor vibrated as it lifted off the station, moving into the darkness of space. She stared out the window at the stars, feeling a mix of fear and disbelief. One moment she was a clerk on a quiet station. The next, she was heading straight into a war zone. The journey was tense and silent. Lily tried to focus on her breathing, trying to calm the panic that clawed at her chest. The officers gave her occasional glances, some curious, some skeptical. She could feel their judgment. She wasn't a soldier. She didn't belong here. And yet she knew there was no turning back. Hours later, the shuttle docked with a massive human warship. The sight was overwhelming. The ship's hull gleamed under artificial lights, massive engines thrumming with energy. Fighters and smaller craft darted around it, preparing for deployment. Lily had never imagined anything like it. The warship was alive with activity, each crew member moving with a purpose she could only admire. Captain Carter led her inside, showing her the command deck. It was filled with consoles, holographic displays, and officers issuing rapid commands. Lily felt completely out of place. She tried to focus, hoping to find some small task she could manage. "You will stay close to the command deck," Carter said. "Do not leave your station unless instructed. Your job is observation and reporting. Mistakes could cost lives." Lily nodded, trying to hide her trembling. She took her place at a small terminal, hoping she would understand the controls soon. She studied the screens, trying to memorize their purpose. One showed fleet positions, another showed incoming enemy signals. She didn't know how to interpret most of it, but she knew she had to try. Suddenly, alarms blared again. A red line moved across the holographic map, indicating an enemy fleet approaching fast. The officers around her shouted commands, and Lily's eyes widened as she realized that this was not a drill. This was real. She watched as the fleet engaged the enemy, ships exploding in distant stars. The hum of the station was nothing compared to the roar of battle outside the shielded windows. Lily felt paralyzed for a moment. She didn't know what to do. But then she remembered the manuals she had read for the station's systems. Maybe she could help in some way. She focused on the fleet interface, trying to find patterns in the chaos. She noticed a section where power rerouting could stabilize a failing shield in one of the lead ships. Without thinking, she pressed a sequence she remembered from a simulation. The system accepted it. A warning beeped, but the shields on the map strengthened. Captain Carter's eyes flicked to her terminal. "What did you just do?" he asked, incredulous. I rerouted the power. It might help hold the front line," Lily said, her voice shaking. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then the shields on the display held steady, giving the lead ship a chance to fight back. Carter's jaw tightened. He didn't smile often, but his eyes softened slightly. "Well done, Brooks. That might have just saved a ship." Lily felt a rush of relief, followed by a wave of disbelief. She was helping. She, a civilian, had actually made a difference. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to focus. She had no training, no weapons, no experience, but somehow her knowledge of systems could matter. The battle raged on for hours. Lily watched in awe and horror as ships were destroyed, but she also saw moments of bravery and teamwork that gave her hope. She realized that humans fought not just with weapons, but with their ability to adapt, to think quickly, and to refuse to give up. It was messy, frightening, and brilliant all at once. By the time the enemy fleet retreated, the human fleet was battered but still standing. Officers moved quickly, assessing damage and tending to the wounded. Lily slumped in her chair, exhausted, her hands sticky with sweat. She had survived her first battle. She hadn't fired a weapon, but she had made a small difference. Captain Carter approached her once more. "You'll stay here, learn the systems, and keep watching. I don't know if we can trust you with more, but today you helped." Lily nodded, unable to find words. She had entered the war by accident, terrified and unprepared, and yet somehow she had contributed. The thought was both frightening and exhilarating. As the ship drifted in space, heading toward a temporary repair station, Lily stared out at the stars again. She realized that nothing would ever be the same. She had pressed the wrong button, yes, but that one mistake had thrown her into the heart of a war, and she had survived. Somehow she had survived. For the first time she felt a flicker of pride. She didn't belong here, not really. But maybe, just maybe, she could rise to the challenge. She had no idea what the future held, but she was no longer just a clerk on a quiet station. She was part of something larger, something dangerous, something human. And somehow, that thought made her heart beat faster with both fear and excitement. Lily could hardly believe what she saw as the massive warship floated through the debris-strewn space. The damage from the earlier battle was evident everywhere. Small fires burned along the outer hull, warning lights blinked incessantly, and distant hull panels had scorch marks where enemy fire had struck. The crew moved with urgent purpose, but there was a quiet determination in the air. Lily felt like she had walked into a world she had only read about in old history files. She followed Captain Carter to the main command deck. The bridge was larger than she had imagined, with dozens of officers monitoring displays, holograms projecting fleet movements, and communications officers sending messages to Allied ships. Every sound seemed amplified: the buzz of the consoles, the hum of energy cores, the chatter of the crew. Lily felt tiny and unimportant in the middle of all this activity. "Lily, you'll stay at this console," Carter said, pointing to a station near the center of the bridge. "Watch the fleet sensors and relay any strange readings to me. Don't touch anything else unless I give you permission." She nodded, her hands trembling as she approached the station. She had survived her first battle, yes, but she knew the next fight would be worse. And now she was surrounded by trained officers who moved as if every second mattered. She had to keep up or risk becoming a burden. Hours passed as she monitored the fleet. She learned quickly how to interpret signals, enemy movements, fleet positions, and energy readings. She noticed patterns in the alien ships, attacks, small pauses between bursts of fire, moments where the enemy seemed to hesitate. It was not much, but it was something. She marked each observation in her logs, hoping it might help someone later. During one particularly tense moment, a warning blared. An enemy reconnaissance squad had entered human territory, moving fast and cloaked in stealth fields. Lily's eyes widened. She had never even seen an enemy ship up close, let alone one that could disappear like that. Officers shouted commands, ordering ships to intercept. Lily's console lit up with confusing codes she had never studied. Instinctively, she remembered a rerouting function from her time on the station. She activated it, redirecting sensors from the carrier to detect faint energy traces left by the cloaked ships. "What are you doing?" Carter barked, his eyes narrowing. I think I can pick up their energy signature," Lily said. "It might help us find them before they strike." There was a tense pause, then one of the nearby officers confirmed the readings. "It's working. We can see them." Carter's eyes flicked to Lily, and for a brief moment she saw respect there. The enemy ships were detected just in time, allowing the human fleet to prepare for the attack. The engagement that followed was chaotic. Enemy ships fired energy bolts that tore through the void, while human vessels returned fire, their cannons glowing brightly. Lily watched, horrified, as small fighters were hit and spun helplessly in space. She gripped her console, trying not to panic. Her heart raced, and yet she felt a strange thrill. Despite her fear, she was part of this. Her actions had helped save lives. After the battle, she was called by Captain Carter to the side of the bridge. He looked at her seriously. "Brooks, you have a good mind for systems. Your quick thinking saved a ship today. I don't usually say this, but keep doing what you're doing. Don't get in the way and you'll do fine." Lily felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride because she had actually helped, fear because the battles would only get worse. She nodded, determined to keep trying. She had made one mistake that had thrown her into this war, but now she could at least make small contributions to survive. Days passed, and Lily adapted slowly to life on the warship. She learned how human fleets moved in formation, how they relied on each other's strengths, and how officers communicated under pressure. She still did not carry a weapon, nor did she know how to fight directly, but she realized that her knowledge of systems and patterns was valuable. She could read a battle before it fully unfolded, and that often made a difference. One night, as the warship drifted near a distant asteroid belt for resupply, Lily wandered the quiet corridors. She stopped at a large observation window and stared out at the stars. The emptiness of space felt both peaceful and terrifying. She thought of the station she had left behind, the quiet life she had known, and the sudden chaos that had brought her here. She felt a pang of longing for normal life, but also a strange satisfaction in knowing that she had survived. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. The warship's sensors detected another incoming fleet, this one much larger than the last. Captain Carter's voice echoed through the bridge. "All stations, report status. Enemy fleet approaching at high velocity. Prepare for engagement." Lily rushed back to her console, her fingers flying over controls she was still learning. The enemy ships were faster and more numerous than anything she had seen. Her mind raced, trying to predict their movement. She noticed a pattern. The fleet moved in a triangular formation, leaving the rear flank slightly exposed. She quickly alerted the tactical officer. "Rear flank is vulnerable," she said. "We can focus fire there to slow them down." The officer glanced at her, then back at the display. "Good catch, Brooks. We'll adjust fire patterns." As the human fleet engaged the enemy, Lily watched in awe. Explosions lit up the darkness. Ships twisted and turned as pilots risked everything, and officers shouted orders to keep formations intact. It was terrifying, but she felt a growing confidence. She could read the battle, find weaknesses, and suggest solutions. She was not a soldier, but she could contribute. Hours later, the battle ended with heavy losses on both sides. The human fleet had survived, but several ships were destroyed. Lily felt exhaustion in every muscle. She had watched and assisted in ways she never imagined possible. For the first time, she felt that she belonged, even if only a little. She had made a difference, and it had mattered. Captain Carter approached her again, this time with a small nod of approval. "You're learning fast, Brooks. Keep it up and you might actually survive this war intact." Lily smiled weakly, grateful for the rare praise. She realized that survival was not about being strong or fast. It was about thinking, adapting, and staying calm under pressure. She had stumbled into this war by accident, but now she understood that humans had a strength that even trained soldiers needed: the ability to remain flexible in chaos. The days that followed were a blur of training, monitoring, and occasional skirmishes. Lily learned the names of her fellow crew members, simple people like herself who had become soldiers out of necessity. There was Jason, a communications officer who always had a joke to lighten the mood. Claire, a navigator who seemed calm no matter how bad the battle. And Ethan, a weapons technician who could repair a cannon while under fire. They treated Lily as one of their own, though she was still the civilian among them. One day, during a minor engagement near a distant moon, the fleet encountered a new type of alien ship. It moved unpredictably, faster than anything the humans had faced. Officers struggled to adapt their strategies. Lily studied the readings on her console, her mind racing. She noticed a repeating pulse in the alien energy signature, a weak point that opened briefly every few seconds. "Focus fire here," she called out, pointing to the display. "Every third pulse. It's vulnerable." The officers hesitated, then followed her instructions. The alien ship shuddered under the coordinated attacks, finally breaking formation and retreating. A cheer went up across the bridge. Captain Carter looked at Lily, eyes wide. "Incredible. Your observation just saved us again." Lily felt a rush of relief and pride. She was learning, contributing, and somehow surviving in a world she had never expected to be part of. She realized that humans did not always need weapons or brute force. Sometimes, a clear mind and quick thinking were enough to turn the tide. That night, she stood at the observation window again, looking out at the stars. The battles had changed her. She was no longer the scared clerk from the station. She had seen courage, fear, and determination in ways she never imagined. She had survived chaos and made a difference, even without a weapon in her hand. She knew the war would only get worse, and she still had no idea what awaited her in the coming battles. But for the first time, she felt ready. She understood that mistakes could become opportunities, that fear could become focus, and that even a civilian could play a role in humanity's fight. She pressed her hand to the cold glass, staring at the endless void, and whispered to herself, "I can do this. I have to." For the first time, she truly believed it. Lily sat at her console, staring at the holographic display. The human fleet had moved deeper into enemy territory, and the reports were troubling. Alien ships had increased in number, and their attacks were more coordinated and faster than anything the humans had faced before. The tension on the bridge was thick, but Lily felt a strange calm. She had survived battles before, and now she was learning to anticipate the enemy, to notice patterns, and to act quickly when others hesitated. Captain Carter walked past her station, frowning as he watched the reports scroll. "We're about to face our biggest challenge yet," he said. "The aliens are gathering for a major strike. They've learned from previous battles. I expect casualties." Lily's stomach tightened, but she focused on her screen. She noticed that the enemy fleet's movements were slightly irregular. Their formation was precise, but there were gaps between the ships that could be exploited. She leaned closer to the console, pointing at the display. "Look here," she said to the officer beside her. "They're leaving a small gap on the left flank. If we can focus fire there, it might slow their advance." The officer studied her console and nodded. "Good eye, Brooks. We'll alert the fleet." The battle began almost immediately. The alien fleet moved with terrifying speed, firing energy beams that tore through space. Human ships responded, their cannons glowing brightly as they fired back. Lily kept her eyes on the console, tracking every movement, calculating which ships were vulnerable, and relaying her observations to the tactical officer. Hours passed in a blur of light and sound. Explosions lit the darkness outside the ship, and small fighter squads dodged incoming fire with skillful precision. Lily's heart pounded, but she stayed focused. Each decision she made, each observation she shared, could mean the difference between life and death. Midway through the battle, a sudden alarm rang out. One of the human carriers had been hit, and its shields were failing. Officers shouted commands, trying to stabilize the ship, but the damage was severe. Lily's mind raced. She remembered a rerouting sequence she had used before. It was risky, but it might work again. "I can try to stabilize the shields," she said quickly. "If we reroute auxiliary power through the backup channels, it might hold long enough for repairs." Captain Carter glanced at her, eyes sharp. "Do it. We have no other choice." Lily's fingers flew over the controls. She bypassed damaged circuits, rerouted power, and watched the shield levels climb slowly. The carrier shuddered as enemy fire struck, but the shields held, giving the crew time to repair the damage. Carter clapped her on the shoulder. "Excellent work, Brooks. You're keeping us alive." The battle raged on, growing more intense with every passing minute. Alien ships adapted to human strategies, forcing the fleet to change formations constantly. Lily's role became even more critical. She tracked enemy energy signatures, predicted movements, and suggested adjustments to the fleet's firing patterns. Her observations saved several ships from destruction, and officers began to trust her instincts. During a lull in the fighting, Lily took a moment to breathe. She looked around the bridge, seeing officers exhausted but determined. She realized that everyone here, whether trained or not, was relying on human adaptability. The aliens had advanced technology, but humans had something they could not replicate: quick thinking, courage under pressure, and the ability to turn mistakes into advantages. Lily felt proud to be part of that, even as a civilian. The enemy suddenly launched a massive attack from above. Their ships moved in a coordinated strike, aiming to overwhelm the human fleet. The bridge erupted in chaos. Officers shouted orders, consoles beeped with warnings, and the hum of energy weapons filled the air. Lily's hands shook, but she forced herself to focus. She noticed that the enemy formation created a pattern. Every few seconds, A wave of ships would pause briefly before firing again. If the human fleet timed its attacks correctly, they could exploit this pause. She quickly calculated the timing and relayed her instructions to the tactical officer. "Fire in sync with their pause," she shouted. "Target the lead ships first. It's the only way to break their formation." The officers hesitated, but Carter's voice cut through. "Follow her lead, now." Human ships fired in perfect timing, striking the enemy's lead ships as they paused. Explosions rocked space as alien ships faltered, losing coordination. The human fleet pressed the advantage, slowly pushing the aliens back. For the first time in hours, the tide of battle seemed to turn. Lily felt a surge of relief, but she knew the fight was far from over. Enemy reinforcements arrived from a nearby sector, and the human fleet had to adjust quickly. She scanned the incoming ships, noting their weak points and vulnerabilities. She called out her observations, helping officers redirect fire and adjust shields. Hours blended into one another as the battle continued. Lily's hands were sore from constant use of the controls. Her eyes strained from staring at the displays, but she refused to give up. She had become a crucial part of the fleet, not because she was a soldier, but because she could think clearly when others were overwhelmed. Suddenly, a massive alien ship appeared at the edge of the battlefield. It was larger than any vessel Lily had seen, with multiple energy cannons and a reinforced hull. Human ships focused fire on it, but their weapons barely made a dent. Officers shouted, trying to find a strategy, but the alien ship moved with precision, avoiding most attacks. Lily studied the ship's energy patterns. She noticed that each cannon had a cooldown period after firing. If the human fleet timed their attacks correctly, they could strike during these brief moments of vulnerability. She relayed the information to Carter, who quickly coordinated the fleet's movements. Human ships fired in perfect timing, hitting the alien ship's weak points. The massive vessel shuddered, sparks flying from damaged sections. Explosions rocked the ship, and for a moment it seemed possible to destroy it. The alien commanders realized that humans were not predictable, that even a civilian's observations could change the outcome of a battle. The alien ship retreated, heavily damaged. The remaining enemy forces withdrew as well, leaving the human fleet battered but victorious. The bridge erupted in cheers and applause. Officers congratulated each other, but many glanced at Lily with newfound respect. She had helped save countless lives through careful observation and quick thinking. Captain Carter approached her, a rare smile on his face. "Brooks, you did more than survive today. You helped us win. Keep this up and we might just make it through the rest of this war." Lily felt a mixture of pride and exhaustion. She had never imagined that she could play such an important role, yet here she was. The war had thrown her into chaos, but she had found a way to make a difference. That night, as the fleet drifted through space to a temporary repair station, Lily stood at an observation window. She looked at the stars, thinking of all the battles yet to come. She knew the aliens would return, stronger and more organized. But she also knew that humans had a strength the enemy could not understand, the ability to adapt, to learn quickly, and to turn even mistakes into victories. She pressed her hand to the cold glass, feeling a sense of determination she had never known before. She had been sent to the Warfront by accident, terrified and untrained, but now she was learning, contributing, and surviving. The thought gave her a strange kind of comfort. Lily knew the next battles would be even harder. She would face more enemies, more chaos, and more fear. But she also knew that she had proven something important, that humans could face the impossible and survive, not because of strength or technology alone, but because of their minds, their courage, and their refusal to give up. She whispered to herself, "I can do this. I have to." And for the first time, she felt that her fear had transformed into determination. She was no longer just a clerk who pressed the wrong button. She was part of a fleet, part of humanity's fight, and part of something far bigger than herself. Lily sat back at her console, ready for whatever came next. The war was far from over, but she knew she could face it, one observation, one decision, one moment at a time. And maybe, just maybe, she could help humanity survive and even thrive in a war that no one had expected her to fight. Lily sat at her console, her eyes scanning the display. The human fleet had been moving cautiously through a dangerous sector of space for days. Reports showed that the enemy had been regrouping and preparing for a massive counterattack. The tension on the bridge was heavy, and officers whispered anxiously as they studied the incoming data. Captain Carter strode across the deck, his expression grim. "Intel shows a massive enemy strike heading our way," he said. "We need to hold this sector at all costs. Expect heavy casualties." Lily swallowed hard. She had survived battles before, but this sounded different, bigger, more dangerous. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to focus. She had learned to read the patterns of the enemy fleet, to notice weaknesses, and to act quickly when others hesitated. If she could help now, it might save lives. The first wave of enemy ships appeared suddenly. Energy beams streaked through space, striking human vessels. Alarms blared, consoles beeped frantically, and the bridge became a whirl of activity. Officers shouted orders, but the sheer number of enemy ships made coordination difficult. Lily leaned over her console, watching the displays. She noticed that the enemy formation was spreading, leaving gaps in their flanks. She called out quickly, "Focus on the left flank. They're exposing weak points." An officer glanced at her in surprise but relayed the orders. Human ships adjusted their positions, firing in sync with Lily's observations. The enemy faltered for a moment, but then another wave of alien ships arrived from the rear, catching the human fleet off guard. Captain Carter cursed under his breath. "We need a plan." "They're surrounding us." Lily's mind raced. She had never led a battle before, but she remembered the drills she had studied on the station. She knew the fleet relied on coordination, timing, and flexibility. She leaned closer to her console, mapping out possible escape routes and counterattack strategies. "We can use the asteroid field ahead," she said, pointing at the holographic display. "If we lure the enemy through it, their formation will break. We can then hit them while they're disorganized." Carter looked at her, eyes narrowing. "It's risky. Many ships could be lost navigating the field." "Yes," Lily replied, "but if we do nothing, we'll be destroyed. This is our best chance." He hesitated, then nodded. "Prepare the fleet. Follow her plan." Lily's hands moved quickly over the console. She coordinated with officers, sending signals to ships, calculating timing and predicting enemy movements. The fleet shifted course toward the asteroid field, drawing the alien ships in. Energy beams streaked through the darkness as human and alien forces clashed. Explosions rocked the void, and small fighters weaved between massive ships, dodging fire with skillful precision. As the enemy entered the asteroid field, chaos erupted. The tightly coordinated formation fell apart, and many alien ships collided with asteroids or fired in the wrong direction. Human ships took advantage, striking the disorganized enemy with precise attacks. Lily's instructions guided the fleet, timing every move to exploit weaknesses. Hours passed in tense combat. Lily felt exhaustion creeping in, but she refused to give up. Her observations and quick thinking saved several human ships from destruction. Officers began to rely on her instincts, trusting the civilian who had stumbled into the war by accident. Midway through the battle, a sudden explosion shook the bridge. One of the command ships had been hit, and communications were disrupted. Carter and his officers tried to maintain order, but confusion spread quickly. Lily realized this was her moment. She could either panic like everyone else or step up. She took a deep breath and focused on the displays, tracking every ship and every movement. She calculated the timing of attacks, the positions of friendly and enemy forces, and relayed clear instructions to the fleet. All ships, "Form a defensive line here," she called out. "Focus fire on the enemy front while keeping the flanks protected. Repeat the maneuver every 30 seconds." Officers glanced at each other, then followed her commands. The fleet moved as she directed, striking the enemy with coordinated precision. For the first time, Lily felt the weight of real leadership. Her decisions mattered, and lives depended on her clarity and focus. The alien commanders realized too late that they were being outsmarted. Human ships struck vulnerable points, exploiting patterns that no one else had noticed. Explosions rocked the battlefield and enemy ships began to retreat. The tide of the massive attack had turned. Captain Carter approached Lily, awe in his eyes. "Brooks, you just saved the fleet. I've never seen anyone coordinate like that under pressure." Lily shook her head, exhausted but proud. "I just followed the patterns and stayed calm, that's all." But she knew it was more than that. She had learned that humans had a unique strength, the ability to adapt quickly, to think clearly under stress, and to turn fear into action. She had survived by trusting her mind, not by relying on weapons or brute force. As the battle ended and the alien forces retreated, the bridge erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other, and ships transmitted messages of congratulations. Lily sat back in her chair, her hands sore, her eyes heavy, but a deep sense of satisfaction filled her. She had been terrified, untrained, and out of place, yet she had led the fleet through one of the toughest fights it had faced. The next few days were a mix of repair, preparation, and reflection. Human ships repaired damage, restocked supplies, and treated the wounded. Lily studied her console, reviewing battle reports, learning from mistakes, and preparing for whatever came next. She had proven herself not by firing a weapon but by observing, analyzing, and leading when it mattered most. Captain Carter called her to his office. "Lily," he said, "you've done something remarkable. Today you were more than a civilian. You were a leader. Your decisions saved lives, and without you, many ships would have been lost." Lily felt a lump in her throat. She had never expected praise, only survival. I just did what I could," she said quietly. "You did more than that," he replied. "You showed everyone why humans can never be underestimated. Even in chaos, even in fear, we find a way. That's what makes us strong." Lily nodded, realizing he was right. Humans survived because they adapted, because they thought, and because they refused to give up. She had seen it in every officer, every pilot, and even in herself. One wrong button press had thrown her into this war, but that accident had revealed something powerful. Humanity's resilience was unstoppable, even when faced with overwhelming odds. That night, Lily stood at the observation window, staring at the endless stars. The battles had changed her. She was no longer the scared clerk from the orbital station. She was part of a fleet, part of a war, and part of a human force that could survive anything. She pressed her hand to the glass, feeling determination surge through her. The next battles would be harder, the enemies stronger, but she knew she could face them. She had seen what humans were capable of, and she understood that even in the darkest moments, there was a way to survive, to fight back, and to win. Lily whispered to herself, "I'm ready. I can do this." For the first time, fear did not control her. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. She had led under pressure, saved lives, and proven that even a civilian could rise to the occasion. She felt pride, exhaustion, and a strange sense of peace. And as she looked at the stars, she knew one thing for certain: she had changed forever. Humanity had faced impossible odds and survived, and so had she. Lily sat at her console, the hum of the ship around her feeling quieter than usual. The battles had ended for now. The human fleet had pushed the aliens back, leaving enemy territory largely empty, at least for the moment. For the first time in weeks, the warship moved without alarms blaring or energy beams slicing through space. The crew worked on repairs and maintenance, but the tension had eased. Captain Carter came by, nodding at her. "Brooks, pack your things. We're heading back to human space. Your work here is done, at least for now." Lily blinked. She had never thought she would make it this far, and now she was being sent home. She felt a mix of relief, exhaustion, and pride. She had survived battles she never expected to face, contributed to victories, and even led a fleet under extreme pressure. Yet the thought of leaving the ship was strange. She had grown used to the rhythm of the bridge, the hum of the engines, and the camaraderie of the officers and crew. As she gathered her personal belongings, officers approached her one by one, offering quiet thanks and smiles. Jason, the communications officer, clapped her on the shoulder. "You really saved us out there, Lily. Don't ever doubt it." "Thank you," she replied, smiling weakly. "I just did what I could." Claire, the navigator, nodded at her. "You didn't just do what you could. You led us when we needed it most. That takes courage." Lily felt her chest tighten. She had never thought of herself as brave, just careful and observant. But hearing the words from the people who had fought beside her made her realize that she had been more than she imagined. She had grown stronger, more confident, and capable in ways she had never expected. The journey back to human space was long. Lily spent most of her time at observation windows, staring at the stars, reflecting on everything she had seen. She thought of the battles, the explosions, the ships destroyed, and the lives saved. She thought of her mistakes and how each one had taught her something valuable. She had pressed the wrong button and ended up in a warfront, but that accident had changed her life forever. As the ship approached the human command station, a reception team waited to greet them. Officers and civilians alike gathered to welcome the returning crew. Banners and signs celebrated the victory, and cheers echoed through the docking bay. Lily felt a strange mix of embarrassment and pride. She had never expected such recognition. She had only tried to survive, to help in small ways. Captain Carter led her through the crowd to the command center. High-ranking officials and military leaders were present, along with several representatives from allied human colonies. They looked at her with respect, some with curiosity and others with quiet admiration. One officer, a stern woman named Commander Reynolds, stepped forward. "Lily Brooks," she said, her voice carrying across the room, "you have shown exceptional courage, leadership, and intelligence under extreme circumstances. Your actions during the recent battles saved countless lives and turned the tide in humanity's favor. For this, we are awarding you the Medal of Distinguished Service." Lily's eyes widened. A medal? She had never considered herself a hero. She had been terrified when she first arrived at the warfront. She had survived by observing, thinking, and acting quickly, not by wielding a weapon. Yet here she was, being honored for her contributions. As the medal was pinned to her uniform, the room erupted in applause. Officers cheered, crew members clapped, and even some of the civilians who had gathered smiled proudly. Lily felt warmth spread through her chest. She had never sought recognition, but now she understood that her actions mattered, that even small contributions could change the outcome of events on a massive scale. Later, she walked through the docking bay, observing the bustling activity. Ships were being unloaded, repairs were underway, and officers moved with purpose. Jason caught up with her, grinning. "You know, Lily, I always thought the civilians were useless in a war. Now I think I was wrong." Lily laughed softly. "I still feel useless sometimes," she admitted. "I didn't fight like a soldier." "You fought in your own way," Claire said, joining them. "Sometimes thinking clearly and making the right decisions is more powerful than firing a weapon." Lily nodded, feeling a sense of belonging she had never felt before. She realized that courage came in many forms, and that leadership was not just about orders or rank, but about knowing when to act, when to think, and when to stay calm. She had discovered strengths she never knew she had, and that knowledge gave her confidence. As the days passed, Lily returned to her civilian life, but nothing felt the same. The quiet orbital station, the routine data sorting, and the predictable days now seemed small compared to what she had experienced. She still did her work, but she approached it with a new mindset. She understood that even in ordinary tasks, observation, attention, and careful action could have a larger impact than she realized. Friends and family noticed the change in her. She was calmer, more confident, and carried herself with a quiet strength. She spoke of her experiences carefully, choosing words to convey lessons rather than the horrors she had seen. She wanted people to understand that humans were capable of great resilience, that even ordinary individuals could make extraordinary differences when circumstances demanded it. One day, she received a message from Captain Carter. It was short but meaningful. "Well done, Lily. Never forget what you are capable of." She read it twice, a small smile forming on her lips. She would never forget. Months later, a ceremony was held at the Human Command Center to celebrate the fleet's victory. Officers, crew members, and civilians gathered to honor those who had contributed. Lily stood among them, medal pinned to her chest, observing the crowd. She noticed the respect in the eyes of those around her, the pride in her peers, and the acknowledgement of her role in events that had once seemed impossible. Commander Reynolds addressed the audience. "Today, we honor not only the bravery of our soldiers, but also the courage of individuals like Lily Brooks, who stepped forward in extraordinary circumstances. Humanity has faced overwhelming odds, and through resilience, quick thinking, and determination, we have prevailed." Lily Brooks represents the strength of every human being who refuses to give up, even when faced with fear and uncertainty. Lily felt a lump in her throat. She had never imagined herself in this position, and now she understood the true meaning of human perseverance. She had been afraid, untrained, and thrown into chaos, yet she had survived, learned, and contributed in ways she never thought possible. Her actions had mattered, and that knowledge filled her with pride. After the ceremony, she walked through the command center, observing the faces of those who had fought alongside her. Jason waved, Claire smiled, and even Captain Carter gave a rare nod of approval. She realized that these people had become more than colleagues. They were a part of her story, witnesses to her transformation, and companions in humanity's struggle. That night, as she gazed at the stars from her apartment window, Lily reflected on everything she had experienced. The battles, the fear, the chaos, and the victories all blended together in her memory. She understood that one wrong button press had changed her life forever, but it had also revealed something powerful. Humans were not defined by mistakes, fear, or limitations. They were defined by their ability to adapt, to think, and to act with courage when it mattered most. She touched the medal on her chest, a symbol of both recognition and transformation. It was not about glory or fame, but about survival, resilience, and the knowledge that even ordinary individuals could achieve extraordinary things. She had been terrified when she first arrived at the Warfront, but now she knew that humans could face the impossible and emerge stronger. Lily whispered to herself, "I survived. I contributed, and humanity can do the same." In the days that followed, she continued her work on the orbital station, but with a new perspective. Every decision, every observation, every action was meaningful. She had been tested, challenged, and transformed, and she carried those lessons with her. Humans would face challenges again, she knew. There would be more battles, more enemies, and more chaos. But she also knew that humans had an advantage no machine, alien, or weapon could match: the ability to think, adapt, and act with courage under pressure. She had seen it firsthand, and she had become part of it. Lily Brooks, once a clerk who pressed the wrong button, had returned from the Warfront changed forever. She had learned the meaning of courage, leadership, and resilience. She had faced fear, survived chaos, and contributed to victories that would be remembered. She had returned home with a medal, yes, but more importantly, she had returned with knowledge, confidence, and an understanding of what it meant to be truly human. As she looked out at the stars, she felt a quiet determination. Whatever challenges came next, she was ready. She had seen the worst, survived the chaos, and emerged stronger. She had learned that humans, even in their ordinary lives, were capable of extraordinary things when they refused to give up. And Lily knew that her story, her journey, and her lessons would stay with her forever, a testament to the power of courage, quick thinking, and human resilience.